and the New Day are going for the tag titles, and bring it all together. I mean, it's something that can be done, and one of the only highlights I could say from the Vince Russo era. There's not a lot of things I can really speak on as a highlight, but at least when you had the undercard with like Lance Storm, he had something going on with the titles, and it's one of the things that I thought was probably the best thing going for Lance Storm, and I would like to see more of that. Eva Marie was shown in a little of a skit talking about evolution. Here's my opinion. Eva Marie definitely deserves to be employed. I don't see any issues with Eva Marie itself. It just seems like WWE puts a high value in it and it's got a very limited return. And I don't want it to be a situation where they, put a lot of time and effort into prepping Eva Marie and her comeback or her debut at this point, and get nothing out of it. It doesn't make sense where that time could have been placed with other people. And it's one of those things that they keep kind of feeling like they are repeating over and over again. The same thing multiple times over with Eva Marie. Set up a whole skit or whatchamacallit, getting people interested in them coming and then do nothing with Eva Marie. And I'm afraid that this is going to be a repeat of that. Again, and like I said, they had a breakdown between Shelton Benjamin and Alexander after this whole setup with Eva Marie. They did a match between Benjamin and Alexander, and Benjamin won, kind of showing up and showing the frustration and using it against Cedric Alexander for the match. They kind of showed Shelton Benjamin to keep his cool and be like the big brother, trying to fight the little brother that is too angry and not in control of their emotions and not in control of the situation, and showing up the little brother. And that's what they did here. After this, they had this setup between Garza and Gulak. Not setup, my apologies. They had this whole thing following up from last week, and Garza joking that, or Gulak, who essentially had the flower or rose shoved up there his ass, saying, you thought that was funny, I should put that somewhere for you, blah, blah, blah. And Garza threatened him again with the rose. And it looks like that feud is going to continue going. Later on, there was a match between Asuka and Ripley, where Charlotte Flair joins commentary. Rhea won, and that sets up again going into WrestleMania BackLash, where Rhea has the upper hand. John Morrison now faces Damian Priest to set up the stipulation between John Morrison, The Miz and Damian Priest, what that would be. And again, Priest beat John Morrison. And at that point, it becomes the determination for Damian Priest to set up the stipulation for their match at WrestleMania BackLash. And at that point, he decides the lumberjack, which we'll get into that. There's going to be a whole discussion about WrestleMania BackLash and that whole stipulation with the lumberjacks, and my opinion on that one. Next, we got McIntyre versus Lashley. McIntyre gets the win. Strowman did interfere and ultimately caused a disqualification. But it is what it is. They, again, are trying to set up and drive interest for WrestleMania BackLash between those two. Looks like there was possibly a deal between Lashley and Strowman. However, Strowman attacked Lashley to reflect no deal. The next night, we have NXT. We got Kross versus Austin Theory. And basically, during this whole match, we find out that Johnny Gargano is going to face Bronson Reed next week for the North American Championship. Kross wins, Karrion Kross, I'm going to call him Killer Kross. Karrion Kross is going to be dominating NXT for a couple weeks. It's not a bad character. I think it's actually a really good setup, and I'd rather see it continue. But, yeah, again, pretty good setup, pretty good match overall. Austin Theory is not terrible in the ring, and obviously Karrion Kross knows what he's doing. So, so going in the next match, we have MSK versus Breezango. This was very, very weird. So, there's been a couple points throughout this match where the ref gets in the way. And I can't tell if this is on purpose or by mistake by the referee. But he keeps getting in the way, and it kind of slows up the pace and messes up the footing of the match. And I would like to think that WWE spoke with the referee to kind of correct that, because that kind of ruins the whole speed of the match. And it's like, why does this guy keep getting in the way? If it's a storyline, it's a storyline. Or if I was in WWE's position, I would speak with the referee, but then develop it into a storyline, because it's something that they can kind of play off of with the heel group and just say, hey, they're doing this on purpose, or they try to embarrass the referee the week after. I'll see what WWE does there. I have a feeling that they'll just talk with the referee and nothing will happen on TV. But if I was in their shoes, I'd try to take advantage of the situation that essentially wrote itself. Next, we had Leo Ruff. Is it Leo Ruff or Leon Ruff? Leon Ruff versus Pete Dunne. There was a ref stoppage due to the whole irresponse by Rush, and Dunne wins. Dunne should be a dominant character or even athletic wrestler in the whole NXT division. He should definitely be built up and going up against Kross and kind of give Kross for the run for the money. Him as the Bruiserweight was a great character, and it kind of seems like they steered away from that, but Pete Dunne should be more on the dominant side. He reminds me of a young McIntyre in that, I said back before Drew McIntyre got cut from 3MB, actually before he joined 3MB, he should have been built as a Scottish wrestler that just wants to fight. And that's kind of what they've done since then, but they should have done that in the beginning. It fit his whole way of speaking, and it would have been a good character to keep him around and gain interest. And now they have that opportunity with Pete Dunne. I don't know where Pete Dunne's out of, but they could build him up as a similar character, and I think it would be money. But there's a lot of times where I just feel disappointment with talking about WWE, but that's basically where I feel he should be. Then we have Mercedes Martinez versus Raquel Gonzalez. I know Mercedes Martinez is a talented wrestler, but this match in general was very, very rough from both ladies. Raquel Gonzalez, again, is a good wrestler as well, but there's times where it kind of felt like the match was falling apart. It kind of rough in ring. They didn't have quite the chemistry that they should have. And it kind of took me out of the match. I 100% stand behind that WWE has one of the best women's divisions currently in TV for wrestling promotions. Impact has a really good one. AEW's is kind of non-existent for the most part. They're just not driving it completely, and they're driving tag team. And Impact was strong point was tag team in women's wrestling. I'd still say it's pretty close to a tag team, even though they lost to Rascals and basically lost to North with Ethan Page going to AEW. But they have to work on the rest. They have to work on women's wrestling and kind of get it up there. Nyla Rose hasn't really been on TV much. Britt Baker has. Chris Statlander just returned, so they have the opportunity there. But WWE's women's division is pretty good. This one was just not an example of that. Their next match ended up being O'Reilly versus Oney Lorcan. There was a post-match beatdown on Kyle O'Reilly after the match, and Bobby Fish saved O'Reilly. So it looked like Fish and O'Reilly might be getting back together. However, it was established that Bobby and O'Reilly are doing their own thing. However, going to watch each other's back just to make sure that things don't unfairly stack against them, which is a good idea. I stand behind this idea. I think it's probably the right thing to do while we were trying to build O'Reilly as a as a singles wrestler that can do it on his own, not just a tag team specialist that needs to rely on Bobby Fish to win. So I was happy to see that they are putting these guys back together, because I don't think it's time. If they tag here and there, it wouldn't be too bad, but I don't want them going for the tag titles. I'd rather see what Kyle O'Reilly does on his own and continues to do on his own. There was a cruiserweight title match between Kushida and Santos Escobar. This was a 2 out of 3 falls match, which Kushida won. However, Santos got the first fall, And I definitely like a lot of the facial reactions that Santos provided. He told the story very, very well in the ring with his facial expressions, and it was very, very nice to see that built in. Santos Escobar is one of the top tier guys going on down in NXT, and one of the conversations I had with Just Incredible, which I'm not sure if I cut or I'm going to cut from it or keep in, or if I'm just going to put the stuff I cut out that wasn't really fitting the episode up on YouTube. I haven't made a final decision about that, but however, if I keep it in or if I don't keep it in, him and I talked about NXT in general and their pay scale. And one of the things that I think is a valid question and should be questioned is whether or not NXT pay scale is getting close to what it was for people on SmackDown and Raw. Because guys like Santos Escobar, like Johnny Gargano, like Adam Cole, Karrion Kross, Finn Balor, and many more, they're more than deserving of an equal pay of the guys on Raw and SmackDown. Yes, NXT is not one of the dominant brands, but a lot of people just watch NXT because of the style of wrestling it is. It's more akin to indie wrestling and something you might close to what you might see on AEW. Production's better than AEW, and some of the storylines are better on AEW versus NXT. But at the same time, some people are not even tuning into Raw. I'm losing interest in Raw. And I love the wrestling product in general. But Raw is just not where it should be. And I think the guys in NXT do deserve equal pay to their counterparts on Raw and SmackDown. They might not be showing up to the same pay-per-views, but takeovers have come and gone and have shown that people are interested in the takeovers and will watch the takeovers when they might not watch something like BackLash or TLC or Hell in a Cell or whatever other one that they have going on. On to Wednesday night with AEW. We got Moxley versus Yuji Nagata. A lot of people have been talking about the Wild Thing, where Moxley came out to Wild Thing. I haven't watched this week's TV to tell you whether or not that carried into the next week. I really doubt it's going to carry on to the next week. I think this was a one-time special with Yuji Nagata. Because I think the music that Moxley generally comes out to fits his character way better than Wild Thing. I don't mind if like on pay-per-view he comes out the Wild Thing or one-off with only when he faces within New Japan guys or whatever the case may be, and this was just a one-time deal. But Moxley's music fits him, and I'd rather him carry that on to it. You then get a promo from Cody Rhodes, and I have mixed feelings about Cody Rhodes. He is very much a talented wrestler, and I do think the whole push for all elite wrestling to become what it was, and that there need to be another company in North America going against WWE is 100% valid and deserves his recognition for that. At the same time, I am not a fan of this whole back and forth, whether or not he's a heel, whether or not he's a face. It just leaves me questioning if he knows what he's doing in terms of writing out the story, because from what I read, Tony Khan's not really involved with writing his story. Cody is. Cody writes his storylines, and that's why they seem very disconnected from the rest of the stories on the TV. With that said, this promo is more or less talking about what the sex of his baby is, and that coming double or nothing because he's facing a Brit and Anthony Ogogo. He's going to be the American Dream as opposed to the American Nightmare. Here's my feeling and what I think is going to happen at Double or Nothing. I think at Double or Nothing, Cody's going to face Anthony Ogogo, and Anthony Ogogo is going to get the win because Cody really doesn't need the win. Yeah, there's no reason for it. And one of the things that will play into it is this whole Anthony Ogogo's fists are deadly kind of thing. I think Cody will be written off TV for a little bit, and that's probably the best thing for him. I would not want to see Cody back in a face capacity. I'd rather see him back in a heel capacity because I think that's better fitting for him. Especially considering he likes to go back and forth between being a face and heel. There's a match that he had with QT Marshall where he had a lot of the heel tactics being exploited, where, eye rake and things of that nature. But at the same time, you're supposed to cheer him because he's a face. It's almost as if Cody's bipolar, and it does not make sense for what they're trying to do and the story they're trying to tell on TV. After that, we got Young Bucks versus SCU. This was a great match. SCU and Young Bucks can put on a very much of a